Hi, and welcome to Future Construct. I'm Mark Oden, the owner of BIM Designs Incorporated. We're here at GeoWeek 2023 in Denver, Colorado, and I'm here with Konrad Wenzel, who's the director at Esri R&D Center in Stuttgart. Welcome, Konrad. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Konrad, I'd love to focus on you for a minute. Can you tell me a little bit about your history and how you ended up working at Esri?
Absolutely, yeah. So I actually have a photogrammetry background, so actually studied surveying and geomatics and geoinformatics, and then later on got really deep into photogrammetry as a passion, like creating 3D surface models from images has been a big passion for me, from drone images, from aerial images, and I really got deep into that. I did research on that also quite some years in the University of Stuttgart. Founded a company pretty much 10 years ago actually right now. It's called nFrames, and we built some tech that is actually really focused on doing photogrammetry, so 3D reconstruction on really large scale for entire cities, for countries, but also on smaller scale. And that was a really exciting journey. And in 2.5 years ago, we actually decided to join Esri. As we got in touch with them more, we worked a lot with them, and also supported the ecosystem in 3D content more and more, and then came up this vision. What would happen if we actually bring photogrammetry and GIS closer together, especially under this big digital twin umbrella, having more people really taking value from both of these sides to create something that is much bigger, like a 1 + 1 is 3 situation almost. And this common vision really drove us to join Esri, and there's amazing leaders and people, and it's an amazing team with a long of history. Did that 2.5 years, and since then are growing there, working with a lot of teams to evolve also this idea in all kinds of businesses, so in the mapping space, in the classic GIS space, but especially also in the digital twin space. And it's been an exciting journey. We now integrated all the tech into also the drone software products, for example, and the Reality Capture products. We have a new product also called ArcGIS Reality that we just announced at this conference. And that's why we are here.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm super excited about ArcGIS Reality. Really amazing product that I saw there. Tell us a little bit, taking a step higher, looking at Esri as a company and the scale of that company and what their if for the audience that may not know, what their mission is.
You know, Esri is an amazing company. It is there since 52 years, right? And they have been really innovating to bring spatial data in the digital world. They're doing that since a long time and going through all the big changes in the industry. And what they are today is not just the provider for GIS technology, but really for information systems where people actually bring data, different kinds of data and organizations together. And the interesting thing about spatial data is it's not like in the past where you just would have cadastre data on just vectors or just rasters, but today almost everything has a location, right? So we can actually link everything with location and time, and with that also really different domains. So today all kinds of different organizations use Esri tech to store geospatial data, to serve, to analyze, to share. It's a big ecosystem meanwhile, also with a lot of partners and integration with open standards. And it becomes like a geospatial infrastructure for most of the people. And what is really interesting, when Esri, especially probably in the AEC context, is as it is really strong in being located also on a global scale, being, for example, strong with coordinate system and with data of very many different types, from point clouds, rasters, vectors, tabular data, whatever you can think of, to bring it all together. It's really powerful also, for example, to manage different types of BIM projects as one example, right? If you have 2 BIM projects in one city, how do you connect this? How do you bring this into context? And this kind of context is also why this sector, also AC, becomes so important recently, for example, in the Esri world as well.
Fantastic. If we look at your acquisition, you were the founder of nFrames, and then you were acquired by Esri. What was your role in working on ArcGIS Reality?
So today I'm the director of the R&D Center in Stuttgart. You know, I'm actually have a really techie root. You know, I was actually a researcher at that time. And my passion, however, developed a lot towards like entrepreneurship and then all these different scales that you do there. So I've been, of course, also doing accounting and sales and marketing and product development, product management, being a lot with customers as well. And today, like, I have a bit of a connecting role. So on the one hand side, we lead this R&D Center in Stuttgart with more than 40 people, like doing really deep technical work for supplying other teams in Esri with the Reality Capture technology. And then on the other hand side, I'm also the link to business development and product management, so we can streamline this also like on how we can, like as an organization, evolve to help our users and customers better to bring these ideas of GIS and photogrammetry really together. So I'm like a connecting piece there, and that's actually a really enjoyable role. And ArcGIS Reality was born like out of this idea: how can we really create a family of products, actually, while not just doing one product, one size that fits all, but really also acknowledging that there is so many different needs, right? From drone survey people who are really working in AEC, they have a totally different perspective than maybe if I'm working in a remote mine, and that's again very different if I am in a city and I want to capture an entire city, or if I actually manage an entire state or a country, and how to bring all these different user groups together and provide them the technology, at the same time also recognize that they use it in different ways. That's what we are actually trying to achieve with this family of products.
Very cool. You were mentioning the interface with clients and organizations, and I'd love to understand, especially with your background and your expertise, subject matter expertise, what is the best way for organizations to adopt and integrate GIS, and how would that also, how do they manage the data, how do they bring that over to the BIM world? What are your best practice recommendations there?
That's an excellent question, and I think one thing that is on many people's minds also in this digital twin context is like how to get started with all that. And I think you touched on something very interesting, as many people do GIS today already. So they capture, manage, and also serve geospatial data. What we are looking for and trying to achieve as a community is to give incremental steps and rather evolve from there. So one thing is, for example, many people are collecting 2D data today, right? Or are managing, for example, plans or drawings and plannings in a 2D space. And a good way, for example, to now expand this and to build on top of that is to think about, hey, how can I go to 3D? Sometimes that can be for certain types of companies to go towards BIM, because that makes a lot of sense in the design process, and 3D can be part of the natural design process. In other areas where I maybe don't have this design process and have to start from scratch, or I want to compare to what actually is out there, Reality Capture is actually an amazing segue into going to 3D. And we realized one interesting thing there. In old times we always thought, hey, we have to build like then this one data model where we bring all the data together, right? And one thing that is really interesting is that the assets that people have there today are already like in data that exists and already maintained in a certain update cycle in a way that is essential as the data is today. And when we now go to 3D, it's really important to not mix it all together, to not create more dependencies between people, complexity in organization of communication. And so what we came up with recently is, how about if we like rather help people to keep their existing data and build on top, add something, for example, a Reality Capture to a 2D drawing, but let them interact very easily with both together, or let people attach like information, simple information, to a 3D mesh as one example. So like a 3D canvas in some sense, without having to like do a lot of like data capture work before, and then exploit that like in real time, bring it all together, and keep at the same time organizations autonomous, so they can update and work with their data in their ways.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Konrad, for sharing that and the best practices. Would love to understand, you and I were a part of the Empowering Digital Twins panelist panel where I was moderating with several of our other colleagues. Amongst you being able to present about Esri and announcing ArcGIS Reality, would love to understand what your other key takeaways from that panel were.
This has been an amazing panel. I really enjoyed being together with you there. Thank you for hosting this, by the way.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
It was so much fun also to listening to these different aspects and perspective, and hearing the different learnings on what people had, what it means to their organizations, how to get started. And one thing that I really learned as this panel had also a really strong AAC focus was to see a different aspect of reality capture that I did not have a look at, and that is I can use reality capture also to store and maintain information that I can just exploit later. So very often in modeled information, I need to know the question and the specification before I capture data, otherwise I can't have it. And in that panel, I saw a lot of examples, but also the conversations after really led me to, hey, if we just keep the original data, like point clouds, meshes, and really bring this all together, we can also really have the organizations to answer things much more flexibly, and really have organizations subsequently and new tools also being brought in to maybe do things different than we do them today, and opening up this flexibility and rather building an ecosystem around that. That was really striking for me.
That's so cool. I'm glad you had such a strong takeaway from the panel. Would love to understand what other, this is the last day of Geo Week, what other takeaways did you have from the conference, or notable lessons learned?
The lessons learned is this industry is amazing. Again, I'm so happy actually to be and see all these people, to see the energy, how people are also showing on what they're doing. There's a lot of amazing developments in the lidar and drone segment, up in the exhibition hall, definitely. One thing I realized when talking to people about their actual digital twin projects is these projects are massive. And very often, if you listen to that, you just wonder, how should anyone be able to do that, right? These undertakings and these ambitions are so big that I would still say our industry is almost too small for that. And there is no other way than collaborating, right? Yeah. So I think there is a big opportunity in strengthening that aspect, right? And also maybe companies that saw each other more as competitors in the past now to rather find these aspects on, hey, what can you do really well? What can I do really well? Doing that even stronger, to really be able to help in the community to make this happen, right? To also show that digital transformation is possible, that it also can get more easy, to show to others how it can be, to also get more people into this community and really make this change happen together.
I completely agree, and I love that this community has such an amazing way of elevating each other and partnering with each other, and looking for different ways to work in that capacity. Really appreciate your time, Konrad. Really appreciate you as a colleague and a member of the panel. Thank you so much, sir.
Hey, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Hello and welcome to Future Construct. I'm Mark Oden, the CEO of BIM Designs Incorporated. We're here at Geo Week 2023 in Denver, Colorado. I have Ted Knaak with us, the founder and president of TopoDOT. Welcome, Ted.
Oh, so thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Would love to hear about your background, Ted, and what brought you into founding TopoDOT.
Okay, let me, I guess, go back to the beginning a little bit. My technical background was satellite control systems. So not, before they spoke of BIM and reality capture, whatever. But we did hardcore simulations in that world. So and so I became kind of interesting enough. I started out with a career in let's call it digital twins, because you had to build a digital twin of a satellite and you had to know how it worked. Then fast forward, I did that for 10 years, and then I got into lidar when I moved to Florida. And in that, I kind of was interested in the technology. Those days, it was just if you could make a box and tell you how far the wall was away, that was it. Nobody envisioned scanners, the accuracy, the performance now is crazy, right? And I'm an old guy, so that was about in the 90s. And then in 93, I founded Regal USA with Dr. Regal out of Austria. They gave me a brochure to translate in German. I said, wow, this stuff's really good. So I kind of always wanted a company. So I said, well, if I have something to sell, I'll have a company. First thing I need is customers. So I did that, and it gave me a chance to solve people's problems with lidar. And I did that for 17 years with Dr. Regal. And Anybody familiar with the space, you know, those Regal scanners have come a long way from when they were then. But I applied lidar in a multitude of industrial applications, from single point measurements and to the initial scanners. Scanners were starting in those days. A scan that takes 30 seconds a day would take 35 minutes. So just to give anybody, you youngsters, a feel for what we have to deal with, and that was fast. So anyway, we fast forward around 2005, we sold some scanners. We were selling the first ones. And 2005, 2006, and we would go to conferences. And I remember a specific SPAR conference, which is now integrated in here, where all my customers were just extremely upset with me. And I said, well, what did I do wrong? He says to me, well, the scanner works okay, but you gave us this software, and we can't get any deliverables out. And so I take that as a cue that something has to be done. We were selling some third-party software at the time, and it just wasn't working. And I looked at what was in the market, and I said, okay, nothing works too well. And that was the big problem. You know, everybody's looking at a point cloud and very excited, and then the excitement kind of went away, and you were frustrated, and then you realized this thing couldn't make you any money. So in 2005 or 6, I had some interns working for me, and we started doing projects, and I started to understand what they were trying to do. And we got into transportation because Regal scanners were good for long range. So there was already an active market developing for scanning inside, because you use phase scanners, and very accurate, very high density, and you can kind of just click and measure. But they wouldn't work outside. If the sunlight hit them, it was over. It was just, you couldn't get any 2-3 feet range, so it was kind of done. You couldn't do anything outside, and then the nature of working outside, organic issues, trees, whatever. You couldn't just measure anymore. The data didn't look good. So it didn't work outside. So we focused on the outside stuff. We focused on roads and things that Regal was pulse time of flight, which is a different type of technology. And it had the range, not quite the precision at the time, but that has gotten better and almost equal now. So we did that. We realized what the projects were. We realized what the customers wanted, what the requirements were. Would they get paid? How they make money? You always figure out how your customers make money. That's the only way they're going to buy stuff from you, right? If you can't help them make money. So we did that, and then tried to tell people how to do the software from my initial experience in satellite controls, signal processing, all that stuff, and nobody listened. So I walked into the other room where I had these interns working, and I said, does anybody know how to program? And Mauricio, our lead developer, 19 at the time, said, I can program. I wasn't expecting much, but I said, okay, whatever. I taught him the math a little bit, showed him what some basic stuff we could do. 2 days later, he had buttons in MicroStation. And I said, who are you? And turned out Mauricio had been programming since 11. He cracked into Final Fantasy, was making 6 figures just selling cheating programs on the net, on the web, which is how we based our licensing program on what he learned there. And we just started. I started teaching him things about signal processing, and he just started. He knew how to program, and he started learning, and we were kind of self-taught, both of us. And I don't program, but he's still there. He's and that's really the story. And TopoDOT, we spun off from Regal USA. So we did that within Regal USA. We spun off in the end of 2011, 2012. Became an independent company. Myself and 2 full-time employees, 3 maybe, and an intern or so. So not much. And we've just been fortunate that we kind of pushed the market forward with our technology. The hardware caught up, and we kind of put some process control inside of that process, getting from beginning to end, and that's how TopoDOT was born. That's the long story.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. No, it's amazing to see it, from need to idea to generation. Mm-hmm. So how long ago was that, and where are you today in TopoDOT?
Okay, so that was 2012 we started, and then today. So fast forward to today, we are 25, 26 employees, most of them in Orlando, Florida, and a few we have Europe covered. have a person in China. That's a difficult market. But in Australia, we have a good presence. We have TopoDOTs used around the world. There's about 700 companies, agencies using it, with approximately 5,500 to 6,000 active users. So it's come a long way, and been very successful, very gratifying, and because we basically, have been making people successful, and that's the most rewarding part, and that's how you grow. I mean, if you make your customers successful, well, they have money and the reason to keep growing and buying your things, and then it all works out. So that's where we are.
And what does the core system or the core platform provide?
Well, TopoDOT is fundamentally it's a program that takes it's an application, it's software, but we call it a process. We looked at every stage from acquisition of point cloud data, and let's focus mostly on point cloud data. And the point cloud data and geospatial technology really added another dimension. You're making now a 3D picture. The initial feeling was kind of interesting. It was a little naive. I think I remember surveyors saying, "Wow, I have all this data now." Because they get paid by the point, right? If I could go out and a surveyor will go out and get 800 points in a day, and he said, "Wow, I make a lot of money. It's a full day work." Now I can get 8 million points in a day. I guess he thought he was going to get 1 million times more money, but that's not the way it works, really, right? And what they forgot is that you're out there making decisions. You're actually doing a one-to-one scale drawing of the world, right? If you're doing a road, you're putting a point down, you're saying that's the edge of the pavement, and it connects to that point, and we just keep going down the line. And we make this drawing in a one-to-one scale, which is interesting, right? Well, the issue is that when you make a point cloud, the point clouds, you have to extract that same information, but there is no intelligence in it. And people still just want the intelligent model, and that's what TopoDOT does. So TopoDOT basically takes this point cloud and says, all right, how do I manage your data? Because there's a lot of it. We've solved that problem really elegantly. And how do you organize it? And how do you do that inexpensively? And then how do you assess the quality? How do you know that point cloud, and how do you assess traceability back to the control? The control, the survey control, is the only signed off document that's actually legal and says, it's the only thing that says, I'm a surveyor, I'm a licensed surveyor, I can only put points in space. Well, how do you tie your point cloud to that and say, this is the same accuracy or it's not? We've addressed that problem. And the next problem, the sexiest problem, is extraction. How do I extract a deliverable that can feed the downstream operations with, today you'd call it the digital twin, that basically the downstream operation needs, because they have to, and they don't really need data, they need actionable, they need to interpret it and for action. They have to do something with it, right? So they either have to analyze it and decide that there's a volume quantity that makes sense, or they look at a model and say there's a clearance, or how their new design is going to fit into the existing area, the as-built condition. It all depends. So digital twins can be anything, but that's what TopoDOT does. It takes you from that initial data acquisition into the deliverable, and like we like to elegantly say, what you get paid for when you're doing this kind of work.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm excited to learn more about TopoDOT, and I was excited to be a part of the panel with you, moderating the panel about empowering digital twins, where we talked about the practicality and the ROI of digital twins. Would love to understand, in addition to having spoken about TopoDOT, what were some of your key takeaways amongst the other panalists?
Well, I was really excited, and I want to thank you again. You guys did an excellent job, by the way.
Thank you.
I think actually, well, it reinforced. We had a different take on it, So we basically said, we've looked. I've had customers coming to me that are in the geospatial space, right? And typically, 80% of our customers are geospatial companies extracting from point clouds and delivering deliverables, digital twins, whatever you want to call them, topographies, buildings, 3D models, whatever. And they were coming to me. The first kind of understood this as they were coming to me and said, we're hearing about digital twins, Ted, but we don't understand it. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I'm making these digital twins, but I have a geospatial, I have real-time constraints. I only have a certain amount of people. We're, for interesting, it was a company from England, Balfour Beatty, London, and they've been good TopoDOT users. They said, well, they want to do a digital twin model of the entire thing so they can do all this cool connection stuff, but I don't have enough people to do this, you know. and nobody really knows what the requirements are. And if I make it as accurate as possible, nobody wants to pay for it, and I'll be processing forever, and we can't keep up with the project because it's changing too fast. Because and the week later, things have changed, you know, you've moved on. So this whole idea of, well, maybe we should look at it differently occurred to me. So we had TopoShare when we introduced TopoShare, and TopoShare was this way of organizing your data and getting to it. And then it really kind of enlightened me to say, what am I really doing? Is TopoShare an inexpensive way of competing with point cloud viewers that let you spin, let a lot of interaction with the point cloud and have basic measurement, which there's a couple companies doing that? But it really doesn't. I said, like, no, man, the only way this is going to work is if you can do this on demand. Because every digital twin has a unique customer for it within an operation. And nobody can really say what all those customers are going to need. Now, it's nice to say I'm going to model the entire thing, but try modeling 40 miles of track on your construction costs. You can't do it. The fidelity, you never know when to stop. And again, you don't have the bandwidth. There's 4 or 5 people that you can process maybe, and they'll never keep up. So it occurred to us that really what we do is we say, okay, let's just establish communication and collaboration. How do you let the downstream operations that you're supporting know what you have and what's available and what's possible? It doesn't have to be finished. You just have to know where it's there. So capturing information is pretty fast now. I can drive mobile lidar down and do corridors at 40, 50 miles an hour. Aerial, same, UAVs. I mean, that's not the big problem. The big problem is how do you extract it and get what you need and give a deliverable that can be signed off. That's the other issue too, and we can talk about that in a minute.
Well, in fact, where should, as it looks like TopoDOT has worked to solve a lot of these challenges, where should the audience go to learn more about TopoDOT? Okay,
well, the new website will be much better. I apologize. Everybody's website's behind, and ours is ancient. Or please, just contact us at info@topodot.com, TK, Ted Knaak at topodot.com. You can just send me an email. We have a wealth of information actually on basically data quality, how to assess it, how to put requirements on it from the point cloud, from the raw data side. Extraction, a lot of extraction examples, and of course we're always ready to basically just give us a call and we can do a Teams meeting and just show you, what are you trying to accomplish. Let's see if TopoDOT fits for you. Let's see if this process will work. What kind of process is going to work for you? And we're very open to just sharing information. And if it doesn't work, we'll point you in the right direction as well as we know it. We always like to be able to fit this round peg in the round hole, and that's fine.
Well, fantastic, Ted. Thank you so much for joining us on Future Construct and being on our panel at GeoWeek.
Well, I appreciate being here, and anything I do to support your organization, I'm really excited about that because I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much, Ted.
Okay, take care.